Blast Bounty was the first big tournament for the new transfers to shine, and I analyzed 25 BO3s and 1 BO5 of 16 different teams, and in this video I will have a small summary of the game and my conclusion of one of the first games from the new transfers. It took me a while to make this video, so if you like this content, make sure to subscribe and leave a like. Let's first start off with the winners of this tournament, MOUZ. They got in PR and Xelex, and I believe they were a winning factor for this team. They do have to train a bit, because they don't know how to lift trophies yet. The first match was against Nuclear Tigers, and PR started off good with a score of 1.3, and Xelex not that good with a 0.92 score. At the first map, both players had a nice start. Xelex had a nice 4k on T side, and PR played some nice CS by lurking around and taking some advantages and some people to the grave with him, as his team taking advantage to his side. On the second map, PR had some nice clean headshots and some nice trades to win them some rounds, even though the team struggles to get some kills. Xelex struggled more on this map because he had some unfortunate deaths by some spams or a full-on rush on him. PR does overpeak sometimes to get some kills, but he only does it when it's possible and there are teammates to take the space back if he loses it. The second match was against FOKUS. In this match, Xelex had a 1.16 rating while PR had a 0.93 rating. In this match, Xelex had some nice pistol rounds, while PR tries to play more passive and set up some crossfires to play as a team. PR is struggling a bit in his battles this match, but the nice team play from MOUZ is what wins them the first map. On the second map, PR wants to play more aggressive and sometimes succeeds, but it doesn't go well all the time. He's still capable of performing, but not at his best. You can see in this map that Xelex is more of a passive player and PR is more of an aggressive player, and he tries to get some highlights and sometimes has a nice clutch. Even though these first two matches were online, MOUZ played in a kind of LAN setup, and I do think that helps the new players to get used to the feeling of a crowd in front of them. They advanced to the playoffs and the first opponent was 3D Max. In the first map it looked kinda scary because Dust 2 isn't the greatest map of MOUZ. And that's because PR is a B anchor and PR doesn't really know how to B anchor a B side on Dust. And that's because his old team GamerLegion doesn't play Dust at all. So you saw him struggle a lot and 3D Max just are exploiting it. When they try to go A, Xelex is there and he does perform on A, but PR just struggled this whole map. On the second map, PR got his form back again. You can see he's a nice aggressive player and likes T sides. And also on CT, PR likes to play aggressive by lurking around and getting some info for the team. Both players had some nice moments and some nice retakes to help them win the game. And Xelex had a last round clutch to win them the map. On the last map we were totally forgetting that PR had a shit first map, because he had a 15-8 score at halftime. And MOUZ just dominated 3D Max on Inferno. PR had a nice pistol round and his anchoring looked way better than it was at Dust. And Xelex just had a kind of average performance. Stats wise, PR got a 1.08 and Xelex a 1.07, but you have to keep in mind PR had some high highs and some low lows, and Xelex was just nice average. In the semi-finals they faced Astralis, and the first map was a bit of a struggle because they just exploited B again, and that's PR's side. PR had a big struggle again on the first map, so I was really hoping he could improve throughout the series again. But he did show he is kind of an attacker and is more of a T-side player. But that's not enough and they lost the first map. Second map it already started a bit better with a nice entry kill from PR and a nice hold kill from Xelex. After the pistol they got some nice momentum but lost the first round by the mistake to leave short open and push con while the saved AWP can ace the team. Once Astralis got on the board, they kind of struggled again and had some close rounds and sometimes they got stomped on. They did manage to hold on to B side very nicely and made sure to win the rounds from there. PR kept struggling on this map and Xelex had a nice team performance with some nice teamwork. On the third map it was a nice start for both new players and Xelex got some nice clean kills every round. PR is doing his job by entering and get a kill to get a man advantage, and Xelex is doing his job by making some nice team play and secure the side. At the start it looked very good for MOUZ, but CT Dust is the hardest for them, especially for PR. Like I said, B side was a struggle, and when Astralis went A and it didn't work, they made sure to go B. But for MOUZ it only had to work once. They had to play a nice B round once to make sure to go to the final. and they did. In this match, PR had a score of 0.92 and Xelex had a 1.06. The final was against Spirit and the first map was Dust 2, and that's a scary one for MOUZ to start on. Not only because B is a weak side for MOUZ, but also Spirit is very good at Dust. MOUZ had a good start, but Donk had a 1v3 in round 5 and it felt like he was activated from there. But I think that was just a myth, because Donk was nowhere to be seen this match. Xelex looks like a nice A anchor and has to hold on that side very tightly with a dominant Spirit, and he does that well. One round looked very scary because Sphinx left B and left PR alone, and at that moment the T's rushed into PR with an AWP. But he managed to get some kills and managed to hold on that B side. And maybe that's a solution, give him an AWP and he will win it. They had a nice decent CT side and the T side looked good. With some nice entries from Xelex as PR tries to get the rotation players. Spirit did win some round, but not enough because MOUZ got to match point and won the first map, the strongest map of Spirit. And the second map is also kind of a Spirit map, and MOUZ looked kind of dominant on this. Both Xelex and PR had some nice rounds by having nice timing and a good play. Like when Spirit pushed mid and they got a kill, and MOUZ just took advantage of that because they knew Spirit would not take mid back again. They took advantage of that and they pushed mid and they just got a side and won the round. On CT, MOUZ also looked very good and even Xelex could get an entry kill on Donk. Also credits to PR for a nice B hold. He looked very comfortable at that B anchor on Mirage. Spirit did win the third map. Donk looked more alive because they had a mid to fight for. Xelex and PR had a nice fight to keep that mid controlled, but even though they had some nice moments, it wasn't enough because Spirit gained momentum and could win the map easily. The final map was Nuke, and even though Donk was not at his best, he still was able to perform. MOUZ do look strong on post plants with surprise flanks and nice holds. Even though the score keeps kind of close, it felt like strategy wise MOUZ has it under control. And that's also because Spirit was tilting a lot. PR had a nice hold and Xelex was killing Donk, and that's what got him a head start towards the finish line. Spirit scraped by round and it was a very close match. Eventually they won against Spirit. Both Xelex and PR had a nice tournament and they had to come into the roles. You saw that. PR with some bad scores, but he did improve throughout the tournament. Xelex looked nice and stable. He had always a decent score, not too bad, sometimes a bit off, but it was alright. So these are two new players for MOUZ that they can rely on, and maybe in the future they can win more trophies. They do have to practice lifting them though. Then we have G2, and they got in a new AWPer named Wrinkle. This was kind of a weird transfer because he replaced Sunpeas. In the first match against Nemiga, he struggled a lot. He died a lot first and also does not get traded a lot of the times. But to be fair to him, Nemiga also looked kind of strong on that first map. What you focus on with an AWPer like Wrinkle is if he wins his 1v1s, especially against a smaller team. And he did not look confident in winning these 1v1s. He did have a multi-kill round, but most of his kills were not that notable, but his deaths were. On the second map he still had a quiet match and not doing much impact, some single kills every now and then. He did end up with a positive KD, but that's mostly because Mattis had a crazy map. On the last map he had a better start with some nice kills, but some of his plays are interesting. Like in the 3v2 he was low and he didn't throw the nade he had. He just peeks and dies when he was left in a 1v2. And in another clutch he goes for a flank in a 2v2 and he can't trade his teammate, and that's how they ended up losing the round. And maybe if he was in another position to trade his teammate, he could have won the round. The second match started off better because he saves the pistol round with a 1v1 clutch. After a decent start with some multi-kills, he didn't do much after and he played more as a bait. He does have some weird plays hunting for kills, which is really questionable because it cost them some rounds. But the round after he recovered with a strong 4k with an SMG against better weapons. And after it just went the way the game was going. Wrinkle had some awkward whiffs and Liquid just dominated sides by pushing through them and having some nice executes. The second map was a bit of a quiet game for him. He did not have much impact and he dies without getting a kill often. In the end he just about had a negative score, but I think it was just the whole team performing badly. Because stats wise he was still performing one of the best of the team. That was it for for G2, they had a struggle against a tier 2 team and they got eliminated by Liquid. I know they have a new player, but so have many other teams, and Wrinkle was not the worst at this moment. But he performed kind of decently, remembering what shoes he has to fill. So let's give G2 some time to get used to this new player and get used to the new dynamic within the team. And let's hope they can improve for the next tournament. FUT got in X-Flout after Longs got benched. The first match was against Sinners. The first 3 rounds of the game went to FUT and X-Flout had no impact there. But once there was some kind of team play involved, he was there to work together and get some kills. After that, the rounds became closer and they started to lose some rounds. He often has plays together with his team that he either flashes them in or he gets flashed in, and that's very nice to see. And he also gets his time to shine every now and then for a highlight. He has a decent first half, but on T's side the team can't win any rounds. And X-Flout also had some unfortunate deaths. He did end up with a nice score though. On the second map they started off great and X-Flout is doing his job in making entries or playing a supportive role for his team. And while doing that he's getting 1 or 2 kills every round. And he rarely dies without getting a kill. It was a very strong T side from FUT and X-Flout showed what he is capable of in this match. They managed to get all T side rounds and almost 13-0'd the enemy. They did manage to win the game with 13-3. The last map was another great start for the team and X-Flout. He was important in the pistol and in the rounds after. A was the weaker side for FUT and X-Flout often gets stuck in retakes, but he can also do that and win them the round. He ended up with a 16-3 score on halftime, but on the terrorist side he did not manage to get a lot of kills. But his team does and they win the match. And he became man of the match. The next match was against 3D Max. It was a very tough start for the team. X-Flout tries to play together and peek together with his team to stop the pushes, but it's just not enough. The rounds after were a little similar, but also in the favor of FUT. X-Flout managed to get some kills on CT and had an 11-5 score. But what we see in these matches is that he's more of a CT-sided player. He sometimes has a good T side, but most of his good plays are on CT. Because once they go to T, he struggles a lot to get some kills. Exactly like this match, he only ended up with 4 kills on T side and they lost the first map. The second map started off better for him. He got 3 kills in the pistol round. He gets caught off guard a lot and dies first often. Sometimes he gets traded, but sometimes he isn't. On CT side he did manage to get some eco frags, but after that he keeps on struggling. And he does not have the impact we saw on other CT sides from him. And eventually they lose the match and he only had a 0.85 score. X-Flout looks like a really good player. He is very strong in defending his side and also in doing retakes as a CT. But on T side he needs a lot of work. I only saw 1 good T side from him and the other T sides he was struggling most of the time. I don't think that's a big problem because he still has great teammates around him. So I think he's a great fit and eventually it will work out for this team with X-Flout. The Mongolz got in Tikwak and Darkmeister. And the first game was against Heroic. On the first map, Tikwak had some nice pistol kills to get them the first round win, but after that they struggled to win rounds. Tikwak had some nice holds that were very difficult to hold in his situation. Darkmeister never really got into the game and only had 5 kills by the end. Tikwak had his moments, but Heroic was very strong on this map and they lose the first map. The second map was Cash, and the start of the match both teams get some rounds in, but what I noticed is that Darkmeister tried to battle a lot in A main and most of the time he failed, while Tikwak is sticking with the pack and getting trades in every now and then. It looks like they let Darkmeister just try his thing out, and eventually when it was not working he also was going with the pack, and when he did he finally got his kills. They won the second pistol and the Heroic went ecoing in a few rounds after, and that was the moment for Tikwak to farm some kills and show off his aim. On CT the Mongolz looks very strong. They have control over the map and make sure to take this map home. In the last map Darkmeister starts off with a nice triple kill and Tikwak also looks good with some nice timing and taking map control to catch the CTs off guard. The rest of the first half was very close and the rounds went both ways, and both Tikwak and Darkmeister are performing decent with some nice entries to get the team some rounds. The second half was also close, but the A anchor Tikwak had some nice plays and Darkmeister is also able to clutch the round. The game went into overtime and Tikwak looks decent, but Darkmeister looks even better. And he was dominating in overtime. And even further into overtime he looks even stronger with a nice double kill, and he ended up with 36 kills. And because of those performances they win this match. The second match was against Wildcard and the first map was Dust. It was a good start for the Mongolz with Tikwak having a nice hold on A together with 910. Darkmeister did struggle a little bit on the first half. He wasn't doing too bad and he got his kills every now and then. But there was always more kills for him to get. And on T side it continues like this. Tikwak having nice entries and also a nice clutch, and Darkmeister getting a kill in some rounds. But in the end Darkmeister got 2 nice entries to secure them map 1. The second map was Inferno, and the start went into the favor of the Mongolz. But the 2 new players were struggling a lot. They didn't get much kills and the impact plays were limited. Second half the round stayed close, but both Darkmeister and Tikwak looked more comfortable with getting kills. And they managed to close the match to go into the playoffs. And in the quarterfinals the opponent was Faze. The first map was Nuke, and Darkmeister and Tikwak have A control and it looks very much on the control. They had some nice A-holes and it was very impressive to watch. Tikwak had a nice multi-kill and Faze stood no chance, but their T-side looked very bad. And Faze managed to make a comeback on them. From that moment it became more of a mental game instead of a skill game. And the new players of the Mongolz didn't have the experience yet to overcome this mental game. So they lose out the first map. Second map was a nice start for Tikwak in the pistol, but after he gets owned a bit. His team still puts up the numbers and sometimes he gets an entry and his teammates are always ready to trade him. Darkmeister has a bit of a quiet game, sometimes he has his plays and does what he needs to do, but he also wants to show what he can do and he also goes for some nice flanks, and he wanted to set the tone by knifing Frozen, but that's where the inexperience kicks in and he fucked it up. Tikwak showed some nice trigger discipline and making a double kill, but they couldn't win that round. The Mongolz still looked strong on CT and Tikwak had some nice kills to get a good score. Darkmeister got kind of an average score by getting sometimes 1 or 2 kills before dying, but they managed to win the map and go into the third map. And that was Ancient. Darkmeister started off with some nice plays and nice control over the map, and Tikwak had some trouble to start. Tactical, the team was struggling a bit on CT side. There were a lot of wrong calls and wrong plays, and a lot of time they gave Faze the side. The team struggled a lot and the newcomers are not doing well, but so are the other teammates. And in the end they lose the last round and are out of Blast Bounty. This was the first LAN for these new young players, but they still put up a decent score throughout the game. They both had their highs and their lows, but they still looked kind of decent. I think they are a great fit for the team. They have some highlights and nice team play, so I think these players will get comfortable within the team and we will see them having some nice performance in the future. Alliance got rid of MOUZ, he's back to Medisports, and Bob XD replaced him at Alliance. He performed the best of his team with a 1.03 score even though they lost the game. And that score is mostly because of Dust2, because at Inferno his whole team was ass. At Dust2 you saw he likes a lot of risky plays that also get him nothing some of the times, but he also got some nice rounds with a ninja defuse. And of course you can only get a score like that with some kills, so he also made some nice highlights with a nice pistol round and some multi-kills in other rounds. I feel like Alliance is a nice tier 2 team that can win tournaments in tier 2, but it's just not ready for tier 1. When they had MOUZ, I felt like they were ready for tier 1, or at least like at the bottom of tier 1. But now they got rid of him, I feel like they are back at where they were. I know they wanted to keep MOUZ, but he had to go back to Medisports because he's still on a contract there. But I also hope for him that he will show his performance at some nice tier 1 team or against a tier 1 team, because he has a lot of potential that is still not shown yet. Eyeballers got in Crims. Before Eyeballers he played for Fnatic for a very long time. So for me it was a kind of surprise he found a new team, because I felt like he would just go retire at this moment. But he went to Eyeballers and they played against Faze. They did have a stand-in in this match because one of the players was on holiday, and like I just said at the start, it feels like Crims is just here as a retirement home. It feels like he just wants to have fun and still be in the competitive scene, but just not too competitive, just for fun. He had a 1.16 score and he also had some nice plays, but the match got mostly carried by Youngster. They did lose both maps, so they were out from round 1. 100 Thieves got Gizmi for a new IGL. In his first game he had to IGL against Falcons. First map was Nuke, and that is not the best map for 100 Thieves. The last 2 times they played it, they lost. From the start it showed that they struggle. One round they had a big man advantage and they still lost it. But I don't think that round was not lost because of Gizmi stalling, but just poor communications within the team and poor awareness of where the players could be. Most of the rounds the Falcons looked better, and the only reason some rounds were close was because of some individual plays of the players. But in the end Falcons stomped them on Nuke. On Dust2 at the start they lose the pistol and some rounds after, but when the gun rounds come in they look strong with some strong plays. On CT side they catch Falcons a lot of the time off guard, and they seem to have the right feeling on which side they will go to. And on T side they also have some nice plays to get info and also to catch them off guard. And that is what made them strong this map. A lot of surprises for Falcons that they were not aware of. On the last map they had a very bad start, they went down 0-7. After that they gained a little bit of momentum, but were still 9-3 down. Mentally they were strong, and I think we all heard and we all saw that they made a comeback happen and won this map. And that they won against the major champions. That is impressive for a first game on a new team as IGL. What funny is the day after they had to play an online qualifier against Nuclear Tigers and they lost that. The second match was against Spirit and they were not fortunate for the pickings. Because first you picked Falcons and after that you only had Spirit left. The first map was Anubis and that's some nice thinking of the team. They start off with a map they have the best experience at. When the gun rounds came in, Spirit looked very strong, but every now and then one of the thieves had a fight back to gain momentum. The rounds went both ways and it was a very close first map and everyone started to think, can they upset another big team? They went up 10-6 and they should have closed this map, but Spirit gained some nice momentum and won this map. I think for 100 Thieves it was easier to make a comeback than concede a comeback from the enemy. Even though the team has some experienced players, there are also some inexperienced players while they play a major winning team. The second map was Mirage. At the start Spirit looked kind of weak and we saw some nice trading and teamwork of 100 Thieves. The team showed how strong they could be with some nice individual plays, and besides that's good for the team score, it's also fun to watch from a viewer's point of view. They gained a 10-1 lead. This time they made sure to win this map and go into the last map. And the last map was Dust, and that's a scary one because that's Spirit's home ground. And Donk showed them why. He was performing amazing, so I'm not gonna spend too much time analyzing this map because Donk just was crazy. You can play very tactical against that, but he will win all his duels, so it's kind of useless to break this down. I'm not that big of an analyst. Sadly, they couldn't win another game in this tournament and they are out. But they showed some nice CS and we can see that Gizmi is a nice IGL and that can win big games with some nice calls. I think he's a great fit because they have 2 experienced players and also 2 young players. And he's a young IGL with some experience. And I just think the vibes are very good at a team. I also have one honorable mention and that's for Crucial. He played for Gentle Mates in this tournament. And we know now that Gentle Mates will leave Counter-Strike. The roster will still remain under a different name, but the name Gentle Mates will not be in Counter-Strike again. Crucial was kind of a stand-in for this tournament and he looked kind of decent. And me as a Dutch guy am very hyped to see a Dutch pro player again. So let's hope he keeps up this performance and maybe we will see Dutch Counter-Strike back again. Aurora got in Jimvet and Kixen. They also have a new coach and went full international. The first match was against FOKUS. The first map was cash and it started off good. They led the Turkish trio on A and mid and the 2 newcomers are on B, which sometimes turns out to some weird rounds. And after that they start to lose momentum and lose some rounds. And that's also because FOKUS is a strong team with entering sides. Jimvet still looks very good and he can make rounds very close, even though it sometimes does not work. Stats wise he performed kind of good, but I don't feel like his impact is as strong as it looks like. At the end of Falcons, Kixen also performed pretty good and he shows he can still aim. He's performing kind of average, which is logical because he's the IGL. And it was a very close first map, but the team looks a bit stiff at the moment and maybe it's also a mental game and they lost the first map. Second map was a very close start with rounds going both ways. Kixen had a close clutch that he barely lost. The rounds kept going back and forward, but the CT half looked very strong with some nice team play and having a good read and control over the situation. And that's how they win a map against FOKUS. The last map was Dust. The Aurora struggled a lot to get on the scoreboard for a while. Eventually they did, so at least they did not get 13-0. But after that the circle kept on going and Kixen had some nice shots towards the end of the half, but it was not enough. They did win the pistol on the CT side, but the rounds became close and FOKUS managed to get a match point and eventually win the match. It was a very tough first match for Aurora with his new lineup, but I think this team needs time. They all can play some good Counter-Strike, but they just need time. A full Turkish team went international with an English coach, and they have 2 refugees from MOUZ and Falcons, so they still have to get used to each other and the calling of the team. For example, a G2 needs less of time to get used to each other because it's just an AWPer replacement. This is just a full-on structure change. So I'm not gonna jump to too much conclusions, we just have to give them time and we will see them back, I believe. Nemiga got in a Robo. And the first match was against G2. On Anubis, he had some struggles. He also had some nice plays, but also some struggles. Like he was struggling a lot to retake A against a weaker buy. But he also has some nice reactions on the situation that's playing out in front of him. But when he had to hold a side, he struggled a lot. Most of the time on the first map, he just got away with 1 kill and that's it. It was enough for them to win the map, but it didn't feel enough for a good performance. On the second map, Robo got in some nice kills at the start, but after the start, he struggled a lot to get some kills. Again, like the first map, he sometimes got a kill, but that's about it. He didn't get any multi-kills, he didn't do much. He got a nice retake with his teammate and he protected him so he could defuse, and that's how they won the round, so that's nice. On T side, he got some nice pistol and eco frags, but just like the other half, he struggled again after and he couldn't find any entries. On the last map, he had a decent start again and he helped a lot for the retake, which won them the round. And after that round, he had a nice B hold with a triple kill. In the first half, he gets some kills and he gets his name on the scoreboard, but at T side, he didn't get any kills. And that's it for the Nemiga. They are out of Blast Bounty. He did not have a nice start for his new team, but he wasn't the only one doing bad, so it's also a team problem. He had some small highlights for this match, but maybe against some smaller teams he will perform better. NIP got node in the team and their first match was against M80. He only got a score of 0.94, but at least they won this match to go into round 2. He looks like sometimes his team is using him as bait to get a refrag off of him. And a lot of times he tried to push and make some kind of play, but most of the time it failed. Thankfully his team performed pretty good, so they could still win this match. He's kind of decent in retakes, and as T side he pushed a lot first to gain info and to make some kind of play, which normally didn't work out. Sometimes he got a nice highlight. Or if he made a play, his team couldn't do anything because he was just in a position that his team could do nothing about. He also has some nice lurks, but I think this is just a starting problem and he doesn't know how the team communicates yet and he doesn't know how they play yet, and it's just a bit of a starting problem because his team often couldn't trade him or could not make a play of the info he gave to them. And the inexperience also shows a bit because sometimes he makes a very risky play and loses them around. Even though I sound a bit negative about him, he still performed kind of decently. I was kind of impressed by him as a player. He showed a lot of talent in his first match, but there's still a lot of learnings of this match alone. In round 2 he showed he is capable of stuff and he started off the match with a pistol round ace against Pain. They did lose this match and are out of Blast Bounty from round 2, but I think that's just because Pain has a lot of experience and they made some nice creative play on Nuke that caught NIP off guard. He sticks to his role, he goes in a lot and tries to gain info for the others to play off on. And he also has some nice individual highlights, like they're saving a bit of money. He held the ramp push very well, he made 2 kills I believe, and he called in for backup. Even though he performed pretty well, it did not work there. Pain just looked way more creative in their playstyle on Nuke. On Dust 2 he was the playmaker. He went in first, he made a lot of multi-kills and the team played off of that and it worked. They got a lot of rounds. They went into a 10-5 lead. He played a lot of crossfires with his team. He got a lot of info of his pushes and got a lot of plays of his pushes. But his teammates, I don't know what they were on. They were on crack or something because they just pushed a lot also with the bomb and they lost a lot of rounds because of that. But it looks like his team doesn't know what to do with his plays. Like when they're in a post plant and he pushed kitchen to gain some control of where the enemies are because they had 0 control. His whole team was just standing in positions and doing nothing and they lost the round eventually. Push kitchen with 2 players. I don't know if he should have spoken up about that or that it was just a bad strategy in general. I don't know. We can't read their lips. Nodes still performed pretty well and had a 1.24 score. He's slowly coming into his role and I think he's a good player. He made some good moves and good plays. Sometimes a bit wild kind of plays and he doesn't have the skill to convert them into highlights yet, but I think he will get there someday. We know PR left GamerLegion and he looked good at MOUZ. And Flemmus joined GamerLegion to replace him in his role and he also looked good in his first match. The first map they played was Dust 2 and that's interesting because that's normally the permaban for GamerLegion. And you could see that because the team was struggling, except for Flemmus. He looks like a great fit into PR his position and he has some nice individual skills. He does his job He makes impact and does what is expected from him, but his team is struggling to keep his pace and that's why they are behind. Of course, what doesn't help is that this map is new for most of his teammates. But he has an insane score, but the rounds are just so close because he's doing all the work. And eventually they lose this map, because if he didn't manage to get a kill, they lose the round instantly. The second map was Ancient and we saw he struggled a lot more on this map. And if you keep in mind, they only became close on the first map because of him, then this will be a very tough map. When they got to CT, it looked more like he came back in form, but it was just way too late. He managed to recover his score from a poor T side, but it's a GG for GamerLegion. On Dust it looked like he was performing too good for this team, but on Ancient we saw he also has some flaws. I think he's a good fit for this team because he fits in PR's role perfectly, but they just have to get used to each other more. And if the rest of the team gets better, I think they could be a good team. But if he keeps overperforming like the first map, then maybe it's time to look for a better team. Because right now it looks like GamerLegion is more of a tier 2 team than a tier 1 team. FOKUS got in Pody and JoeCap and the first opponent was Aurora. The first map was a bad start for the team, but it's not all on the new players. Everyone started off badly and also some weird stuff like peeking a pushed AWP with the bomb. JoeCap had some nice entries to secure them the first round after the struggling start. Pody had some struggles to get on the board, but thankfully he has teammates who can entry to win the round. On CT side he also struggled, but at least he has JoeCap in his bag to help him out when he needed it. It was a very close map, but in the end they win it with 13-11. On the second map the start went both ways. Both teams won some rounds, but FOKUS do look very strong in playing as a team. On the second half it was more of an Aurora game. The team did not play together as well as before, and we saw some awkward rounds. Eventually they did lose the map and they could not get much T-side rounds on the board, so they went into the last map. FOKUS had a great start and Pody and JoeCap had some nice teamwork together on long to hold back pushes. Pody also had a nice clutch to steal a round from Aurora, and throughout the series he looks more confident within the team as the AWPer. In the end it was a dominant map for FOKUS and it looks like a nice team to watch. Pody had a very slow start because he was not performing in the first two maps, but in the last map he showed what he can do. The second match was against MOUZ, and we do know they lost that because MOUZ won the tournament. On the first map they lose the pistol and after that they try to take advantage of the weak B side, but in retakes they struggle a lot. Eventually they get on the scoreboard and both Pody and JoeCap have some nice important kills to win the round. We saw they struggle a lot to hold back the retakes from MOUZ, but JoeCap had some nice plays to ensure that they win the round. At the start of CT it looked decent and JoeCap again with some nice plays to win the round, but later on they started to struggle. They struggled to close out the map eventually and lose it. The second map started off good and Pody looks like great in defending and retaking sides, but after that MOUZ gained a lot of momentum and the impact Pody once made is gone. And JoeCap also had a quiet match. The T side started off better with JoeCap also having some entries, but the individual skill of MOUZ was just way better. Towards the end both players had not much impact on the rounds and they lost the match. So that's the end for FOKUS on this tournament. JoeCap looks like a nice player that is coming alive in the team, while Pody sometimes needs a bit of warm up, but he also has some nice highlights from time to time. But let's not forget they are a tier 2 team, so let's not be that harsh on this performance. And I think in tier 2 they might be a strong lineup. Liquid got in a new IGL with JT and a new AWPer with Jorko. JT's performance I look more at the team performance instead of an individual performance because he's the IGL and he always underperforms a bit. And the first match was against Vitality. On Anubis JT had some nice creative calls to stun Vitality. Even though Vitality gets a lead, the rounds Liquid win are very comfortable. When Jorko picks up the AWP he gets activated and JT also shows up when he needs. It looks like his calls are good and he always seems to pick the right side to push on. At the end it looked like Vitality would come back and go into overtime, but Melps has some nice lurks and the team opened up a side and they won the first map with JT as the highest rating. The second map was Nuke and they had a good start. After the first few rounds everything went 50-50. A lot of close rounds by both teams and an interesting map to watch. It was really nice to watch Jorko play and he gives Liquid some spirit and they look fun to watch. It was a very fun map to watch and they can be proud of this win. It will boost their confidence a lot. They get to stun Vitality, a major winning team, and that's very impressive to think of where Liquid came from. The second match was against G2. The first map was Anubis and JT looked like he gains a lot of info for himself and he makes the calls from there and most of the times it's the right call. and sometimes he also can get some kills for himself. He does have some weird plays, I know it's to gain info, but against pistols he just gave them an M4. Is that worth it? Because you lose an M4 for some info against pistols, so you kind of give them an advantage at that point. Jorko had a tough start and he's just getting by with some kills. But the kills he makes are very important for the team. He participated well in the entries and JT calls the executes at the right time to win them this map. The second map was Mirage, and when it was equal weapons and there was not much tactic involved, JT shows he can shoot as well. And when Liquid are on pistols, Jorko knows how to get his AWP back. He exactly knows how an AWPer will play against a pistol and he takes advantage of that. I have to say G2 looked also kind of weak because Jorko made a lot of same peaks in under and he does not get punished. And at that point it just looked like he was farming kills for a nice rating. It was a dominating game and there were some nice callings from the IGL. They went into the playoffs and they faced Spirit. The first map was Dust 2 and that's one of the strongest maps of Spirit. Jorko did look very good in his match. He looks like he's in the right place with his team. Not only because of his skill and ability to get some nice kills, but also because he brings some fun and some good vibes to the team. He got some nice kills, but let's be honest, Spirit is insanely good in his map. So Jorko could perform like crazy, but you still have to beat a major winning team. So eventually they did lose the map with 13-7. The second map was Anubis, and Liquid just got stomped on. They try a lot of different things, passive plays, active plays, but they get red all of the time. The first round they won looks like a great call from the IGL. They reacted on the situation and read them like a book. They showed some nice teamwork to make sure Spirit get killed and they keep each other safe. Elish also looks fired up and Jorko has a nice play with his teammate to kill Donk. They nearly lost that round, but Jorko had a nice clutch to make sure to win it. Sometimes the tactic looked a bit bad because they just got a wrong read of the situation. Because of that they often picked the wrong side to play on. But the last round was Jorko versus Donk in a 1v1. Sadly he only leg shot him and they lost the game. Even though they lost the game and the calling was sometimes a bit off, Liquid can be very proud of this run. They beat Vitality and G2, which is a great improvement. Also the vibes of the team look way better than before. Jorko showed what he's capable of and JT looks like a great IGL. So I'm very curious what we will see in the future from them. 3D Max got in Kersey. He joined at the start of Rostamania when the major was still going on. First match was against Magic. Kersey had a good start with some nice kills at the start and is mostly amazing at organizing the entries. He gets a lot of kills in the first half, but the score keeps close and that's mostly because his team does not kill that much. On CT side he struggled a lot more to get kills. His teammates managed to get some kills, but he fell a little behind and a lot of the times his plays get red. And that's how they lost the first map. The second map was again a good start for him because he had a nice clutch and a nice reaction in the pistol round. He often got 1 or 2 kills with a nice play with his teammate or when he has to recover a side. It was a tough first half for 3D Max, but the second half started off better and they gained some momentum. Kersey got some kills but also gets caught off guard a lot of times. The round stayed very close and the game went into overtime with Kersey still performing and having important kills. Every round he managed to get involved, he gets a kill or he has great impact on the game. And in the end they won the map and go into the third map. There he had another nice pistol round and he made some nice plays, sometimes alone but also a lot of times with teammates to trade each other. And the first half looked dominant, with most of 3D Max players having a nice score. On T-side they continued with this and Kersey was doing most of the trading and the entry killing. With that they managed to win their first game and Kersey got a 1.42 rating, which is really impressive. The second match was against FUT and in the first map the team does a good job in getting a lead, and I say the team because Kersey was not really involved. He played as either bait or support, but when he had to support, his trading did not happen a lot of the times. It was a very bad map for him and he tries to get some creative plays in, but often gets caught. And then he's more of a bait because he does get traded sometimes, but there are not really highlights from him on Dust. In the end round, he had some single kills to bump up his score, and that could be crucial since they only just barely won the first map. On the second map, he continues his role as bait for his teammate and sometimes get 1 kill in before he dies. His plays look often a bit messy, but at least he only does it in a tradable position, which is very important so that they keep the man advantage. And he just keeps on doing what he was doing, getting a man advantage while looking for entries or you will get traded, and that's how they end up winning the match. In this match he looks to have kind of the same role as before, but his individual performance was just worse. In the first match he often got 1 kill every round and here he got 1 death every round. But he's always trying to die with a teammate inside so he can still trade, and that's what made them win enough rounds. They went into the playoffs and they faced MOUZ. From all the teams MOUZ faced before lifting the trophy, 3D Max were the biggest scare. They exploited B a lot of times and this was the clear sign that MOUZ had a lot of struggles with PR on B. Kersey struggled a lot on T side. He tried a lot with timing and getting entries, but most of the time he failed. He did have once in a while a good entry or a nice hold in the post plant, but most of the time it was a struggle. On CT side, the struggle continued, with sometimes getting a kill, but not much more. Thankfully he has teammates who he can rely on and make up for his bad performance. He did have a very important clutch to win a very important round to get to match point. Even though he struggled, he still had a nice performance to make sure they win the map. The second map they had a pretty decent start and Kersey had also a decent first half. Not much to talk about. He got his kills and when he died he got traded, and that is what missed in Dust. He often did not get traded. They had a comfortable lead against MOUZ into the second half, but MOUZ looked activated in the second half. Kersey often died while trying to make a trade or when peeking first and he could not get traded. And that was not all on him because the CTs didn't let them trade, but Kersey should have hit his shots. He does have some good rounds to make impact before he dies, and that helps the team a lot to win the round, and he looked kind of activated when it was close to overtime. He did not want overtime and he just wanted to win the game. But in the end MOUZ won in overtime and it went to the third map. And that map looked like a hell for 3D Max. Kersey struggled a lot to get on the scoreboard and eventually in round 7 he got his first kill, but he did lose the 1v1. He tried his best to make some kills and he did get some, but when he didn't, it were very costly deaths. And in the end, MOUZ looked very comfortable and won this match easily. Kersey looked like a great fit into this team. His performance might not say that, but he had some important plays. He does what is expected from him, only his aim lets him down sometimes. It could be the nerves from a freshly transfer, and maybe we will see him shine in the next tournament. Heroic got in Brolan and Martinez, and their first match was against the Mongolz. On the first map, Heroic had a very good start. Both Martinez and Brolan got some kills every now and then to help the team with entering the side, but it's mostly Nilo making the highlights. But Martinez shows he can clutch and put up a highlight as well. Heroic has a big lead and also win the second pistol, and the team just looks like they're dominating on this map. On the second map they win the pistol and eventually the Mongols get the lead, and Brolan looks kind of struggling inside the bomb site. Martinez does keep up with the score and gets a kill at most of the rounds to keep a positive KD. And he's also involved in a lot of the retakes. Not only that, he is also good at holding sites. His movement looks comfortable and he also has some skill to back it up. But Brolan seems to be struggling a lot. On T side he does have a kill to help the team enter the site, but after that he did not do much at all. Martinez showed some nice reactions to the situation playing out in front of him, but 9-10 proved he be the better AWPer. On the third map, Mongolz had a good start by having some nice individual plays and Brolan helped Martinez on short with a double kill, but he got caught off guard by a long push. Both Martinez and Brolan are defending the A side together and they look kind of good at sometimes, except that Brolan often pushes a little bit too far and dies. Once they go somewhere else than short or long, they do seem to struggle. But when the Mongols just put a little bit of tactical pressure on them, they have no reaction at all and they crumble. On T side, Brolan had nothing to offer until the end when he and Martinez secured the B side. The rounds kept getting close and it went into overtime. Martinez does look strong with his AWP and looks like he fits right in the team and makes sure to win the duels he takes. In the second overtime it was just lost because Brolan got red a lot. They knew he would push long and he got caught multiple times, and to be honest that might have cost him the game. Mongolz just looked very strong in overtime and they made sure to close the map. Martinez looked very strong with the AWP and I think he fits right into the team. But Brolan was a bit of a problem this match. Not only was he bottom fracking most of the times, in the end his plays were so readable for the enemies and he made those plays when the team needed him. Let's hope he looks back at these maps and learns from his mistakes. I know he's a good player, so I'm pretty sure he will. They of course did win a stake ranked episode 3, so this wasn't the first match for these two players. And maybe it's just a one-off because after this tournament they played a qualifier and they performed kind of decently. So let's hope it was just a one-off. And then we have Faze clan. And for this season they start off with J-Bone and Nachu. First match of this tournament was against Eyeballers, which they won 2-0. And this match was just a nice match to come into. This was still all online, so they could just like vibe in their own way and just feel comfortable around their own place, of course. And it was against a team with a stand-in. Some maps became a bit close, but that was only because Youngster as stand-in was performing insanely. So I hope for him he finds a new team soon. We saw J Bowen perform pretty decently with a 1.13 score. And Neichu maybe didn't have that good of a score with a 0.9, but he looks like a stable B player, especially on Mirage, where J Bowen tries to get some highlights with his AWP, and he's just more of a aggressive player. Neichu is more passive and is just a good B anchor for now. The second match was against Dendele, and Dendele already upset Furia, so they had to be aware of their aggressive playstyle and also not get surprised by them playing good. Jacob performed pretty good this match, just like the other match, with a 1.4 score, and it looks like he got more of a aggressive role, which suits him better, I think. First map started off good with some nice pistol kills by Neichu, and J Bowen also got on the scoreboard by some nice eco frags. And the rest of Nuke is just history. Faze looks so dominant, and both Neichu and J Bowen can make some nice kills. The second map was not that special, except that they both get caught off guard at some moments, like when the enemy pushes under and you don't have mid control and you forgot to check under. But Neichu has some nice pushes on T side because the enemies are just like blind or something. Faze should have won this easily, but they just lost it. Maybe it's the pressure, because you see a lot of overpeaks, and that's where Neichu is like strong, because he doesn't really overpeak that much. He plays it a lot safer because he's also an anchor, of course. But on the last map they got it back. J Bowen has a nice pistol round and some nice eco frags, but he does feel under pressure sometimes and tries to flick instead of holding angles, which can cost him rounds. After the start, both J Bowen and Neichu got a bit quiet and it was more of Jacob's game. But Faze had a dominant T side and are going to the land portion of this tournament. In the quarterfinals they faced the Mongolz. This match was a 50-50 because both teams had new players they have to get used to. On the first map, Faze performed an insane comeback. J Bowen started to come alive and put on some great performances to make sure this comeback happened. On the second map, Faze has a bad start, and in the fifth round they looked desperate to get a kill that they just couldn't. When they finally won a round, it looked like J Bowen finally got activated with some nice shots. But a few rounds later he also misses a lot of shots, which made the round closer than it should have been. At the second half it looked like they were making a comeback again. But that was just some fake hope, because the Mongolz had a nice game plan and changed it up every round, so Faze get caught off guard. And then the third map in a pistol round, it showed what Faze always does. They wanted to get a trade in and chase down a player, and then they get themselves caught in a crossfire setup. And they just didn't clear anything and they all died. But the Mongolz looked kind of weak on this map. And Neichu and J Bowen had a nice clutch together, and Faze just looked very dominant, especially on mid. They had nice dominating mid rounds and they just read everything the Mongolz did, so it was a very nice ancient to see from Faze, and they are through to the semifinals. The semifinal was against Spirit, and Spirit are the favorites of this tournament. And what didn't help is that they picked Dust 2, the strongest map of Spirit. They had a nice decent start, but when Spirit got their weapons they couldn't do much. The new players get caught off guard a lot, and when they go B, Neichu is doing his job in wasting time and getting kills, but his team can't win the round. Even though Donk wasn't really performing this map, they still couldn't win this match. When they got to T side they just didn't stand a chance, and it was simply just over for this map. On the second map they try so hard to make up a tactic to win over Spirit, but it just doesn't work. Spirit just had a lot of fast rotations for these tactics to work, and if they don't win the 1v1s then the round is just lost. They also had some kind weird like suicidal plays from both Trist and J Bowen, but Neichu was there to win them the round and has some nice deagle shots. After that the rounds were very close, but the favor goes to Faze. It looked like J Bowen was struggling a bit this map to get a grip on his aim, but at least they won this map. The last map was Anubis, and they relied heavily on the B side. The B executes looked very nice by the team, but they just should have stick to B, because when they went A they just got destroyed. And that's the only reason Spirit came closer before the halftime. The second half was still very 50-50 and very close. J Bowen got a nice ace, but Faze made the round closer than it should have been. Eventually they lost the game with 13-11. It was a valid run from the team, and also some nice moments for both Neichu and J Bowen. I think a lot of people were hyped for J Bowen at first. I was too. But if you want consistency, Neichu was just better. J-Bone had some awkward whiffs and sometimes that cost him the round, and Neju was just better at staying safe and making sure to win the round. That was it for this video. I hope you liked this video, and if you do, make sure to leave a like and subscribe on my channel, and I'll see you in the next video.